Over the years, Phil Taylor and Adrian Lewis have served up some classic encounters, including this one in the 2013 Grand Slam. Although they are best of buddies, they have two respective different dart stacking methods, and today I will be talking about the distinct stacking methods that Phil Taylor and Adrian Lewis both distinctly have. So in this clip we'll show later, Phil Taylor is using a bulbous barrel, an 8mm in diameter. You can see that the size of the dart actually has effect on how it would stack, and Adrian Lewis is using a long barrel and thin barrel, so you can see how he stacks the darts in this clip we'll show later. So as you can see here, Phil Taylor lays down a brilliant foundation with two darts on the bottom of the treble and landing the third dart just on top to create a wonderful platform to him to stack up to. Here, again, two darts right on the bottom of the treble 20 and stacking it on top, providing a platform for himself to stack his own darts on top. So you can see here, if he lands high in the treble here, he will switch mostly, but obviously he hits a 180. And you can see Adrian Lewis, his darts stand right pointing up. And rather than providing a platform for himself to stack up to from the bottom, he goes from the top end and stacks down. You can see here, right on top of the treble, and stacking down rather than stacking upwards. The overstacker, as they say. So you can see nice and high in the treble 20 here, two darts, and then deflecting the third dart right in there as well. So you can see Adrian Lewis is one of the best players with grouping, as you can see here, right on the end, stacking the darts so close together. See, first dart, strong dart. See, the second dart follows the first dart there to just slide into the treble nicely. Whereas if we look at Phil Taylor in this clip again, he lays down a foundation in the center to bottom of the treble and stacks on top, so you can see the angle of the dart matters. The second dart, it points a little bit upwards because it was influenced by the first dart stacking on top. Here we can see again, it's positioning on the bottom of the treble. The second dart uses a first dart as a guide to land the dart on top. You can see Adrian Lewis, once he blocks the treble with his first dart, he immediately moves to the left side of the treble and obviously deflecting the third dart into the treble as well. Adrian Lewis again, that's why he uses these big standard flights, because it provides this upward landing angle for the dart to position. As you can see, Phil Taylor uses a kite or vapor flight. Look at that, he just stacks it on top. Totally doesn't care about the score at all. And Adrian Lewis, every time he steps up to the board, look at that grouping. It's because of how he stacks the dart and why he does that. You can see people like Michael van Gerwen, his darts doesn't land that upward as Adrian Lewis does. Although he is the best player in the world, I think that Adrian Lewis's darts, how they land on the board, are the most beautiful. You can see here. Phil Taylor eyeing up 167 here. So once it lands in there, well, he left 167, but he could totally go for it and he would hit it. You can see there with the last dart for the ball, he uses the wire as a guide to land his dart on top.
Absolutely incredible from both players. Adrian Lewis teed that up, what he considered absolutely perfectly to leave a two-darter.
So you can see monstrous averages from both players. And you can see again Adrian Lewis with his skinny barrels, he leaves so much space in the treble after only 1 or 2 darts, he can totally fit 3 to 6 more in there, whereas Phil Taylor uses these bulbous barrels, 8mm in diameter, as I said before. He doesn't need that much space in the treble because, 1, he's Phil Taylor, and secondly, he can land his darts on top. You can see every time he starts, well, this one's not blocking the treble, so he can still go for it. But once his darts land high in the treble, he switches. Same for Lewis. If you hit a dart, if you throw a dart like how Adrian Lewis does, and your darts land tail up, sometimes you would block the treble, so you should definitely switch to another target. You can see here, Adrian Lewis, if his first dart doesn't block the treble, he goes for it. Obviously, Phil Taylor's darts will block the treble and leave less space in there easily. However, he doesn't need that much space, as I said before.
It's literally laughable.
So, using the dart as a guide to land on top, and that's why he uses these small flights, because with more access to the barrel, he uses his thick barrels to land on top of another thick barrel. Whereas Adrian Lewis uses a smaller barrel, a thinner one. And that's because you want it high in the treble when it lands tail up. You want the flight out of the way. And therefore, some players now, like Ted Evetts, Justin Pipe, although his darts doesn't land like that. Even me, and Leighton Bennett as well, rising star, he uses 41 to 50mm points. Whereas Phil Taylor and people like Kim Hybrex uses barrels that stick to the board. And that's to prevent bounce outs, because they rely on these shots so heavily. So in conclusion, if you're Phil Taylor and land your darts tail down, or even if you're an Adrian Lewis who lands your darts tail up, try and make your darts spike up as much as you can, or land tail down and flat, so that the function of a marker dart is present. And thanks for watching.